So if you saw the title of this video, uh, I was pregnant for 9 months, woke up one morning and had a baby. That legitimately was my mother's story. So, you ever heard of a miracle baby or a miraculous birth story? I definitely have one of those stories. My mother went the entire 9 months of the pregnancy when she was pregnant with me without knowing it. Like, my siblings were 18 and 20, and my brothers were in their 20s as well. And no one around knew my mom was pregnant. Not my dad, not even her. She literally got her menstrual cycle every month. She didn't gain any more weight. My mother, it was at the time a full-figured woman, and she hadn't put on any extra pounds or anything like that. The only thing that she says when she thinks about it is that she does remember that she had a lot of gas, which was probably me moving around. But that was the only difference that she noticed an entire 9 months of a pregnancy. My parents were together for about 10 years, and then they decided to break up, and then here I came into the picture. So as a matter of fact, the night before I was born, my mother won a drinking contest in a bar. Okay, my mother used to, drink on the weekends, party a little bit, play cards. But then Monday through Friday, she worked her job. And this particular Saturday night, she won the drinking contest in the bar. And that Sunday morning, which happened to be Father's Day, she was awakened and thought that she was having a hangover. Her and one of my brothers were home, and she kept asking him to bring her whatever home remedies that people would do for hangovers, Alka-Seltzers, tomato juice, I don't know, whatever remedies she was trying to alleviate what she thought was a hangover. And that was maybe around like 12 noon, she said, that day on Father's Day. And, she was having him my brother bring her different things, and nothing seemed to be working. So then finally she said for him to go get our neighbor, which actually ended up being my godmother, to come and help her. So when my godmother got to the apartment, because we lived in an apartment, my godmother rather, told her, look, well, I'll just take you to the hospital. And my mom said, man, I feel like my appendix is bursting. And she said, well, go ahead, Hattie, because my mom's name is Hattie, and my godmother's name was Margaret. And she said, Margaret, if I don't know any better, I think my appendix is bursting. This is just killing me. I'm in so much pain. And my mom, when she went to put her pants on, she said there's a pressure, I know now because I'm a mom myself, that you get when it's time to push. And when she went to put her pants leg on, she said, if I don't know any better, I would swear I felt like I was having a baby. This is crazy. And then literally next thing you know, her water breaks. So immediately they have to call 911. And when the police officer gets to the apartment, I ended up being delivered by a police officer who was a fresh young police officer, fresh on the task force, maybe a few weeks in. No one, he says, really ever gets to deliver babies, even though they show you how to do it. And I was his first and only delivery as his entire history of being a police officer. But nonetheless, I was delivered by a police officer in the apartment where we lived. Now, meanwhile, my other siblings were at a basketball game at our local community college, which is Rockland Community College. And on their way back from this basketball game, they approached home. They were walking from the bus stop, and they said they had saw a few people around, and, they were like, oh, man, did you hear your mom had a baby? And they laughed it off because obviously they just saw my mother that morning. My mother was not pregnant. My mom, they thought people are just being silly and bringing out rumors. So as they began to become closer and closer to our apartment, they ran into several more people that kept saying, hey, your mom had a baby. And they laughed it off and was like, man, people are crazy. They approached the apartment. They get downstairs. They said one of my cousins, I don't remember who it was, looked like he had literally seen the expression of like seeing a ghost. And he said, man, Aunt Hattie had a baby. So they go upstairs into the apartment, into my mother's bedroom, of course, and see the evidence that there was a baby was born because of blood and whatever on the bed. My mother and myself were not there. They had already taken us to the hospital. And, when my siblings got there, of course, they couldn't believe that here I was, this baby that was hidden from everyone. No one had a clue my mother was pregnant. She didn't know. My dad didn't know. And of course, she said when she got to the hospital, my mom, she called my father and said, hey, you got to come to the hospital. Happy Father's Day. And he's like, hey, what's going on? And she's like, well, we had a baby today. And he starts laughing, and he goes, okay, I just saw you last night. You won the drinking contest. What are you talking about? And she says, no, BJ, because my dad's nickname was BJ. We had a baby. So my dad comes from White Plains, because at the time he lived in White Plains, and over to Nyack to the hospital. And lo and behold, there's this little baby, me, who they didn't even know was about to come into the world. And my mom said the entire time he held me, he just kept crying because there was no preparation for a baby. There was no warnings. There was nothing. And as a matter of fact, they literally, after 10 years of being together, had just broken up. My parents were not married. My mom actually was a widow from my older siblings, my two sisters, their dad. So, there was, my parents were not married, but nonetheless, they were together for 10 years. And then here I come in the picture. And nonetheless, my father was overwhelmed with joy. And, my mom took me home. Once I got of a certain age, she would say to me, and I, have my own opinions on abortion, but she definitely said, look, God hid you from me, girl, because if I knew that I was pregnant with you, I would not have had you. She literally told me, look, I was 40, my baby was 18, getting ready to graduate high school, and I was getting ready to live my life. So it was only God himself who hid you from me. So that's how I came into this world. I came into this world as a miracle baby who came in and surprised the world, surprised those around me. And I didn't have such an easy start, though. I initially, when I was about 3 weeks old, my mom said that she was, at the time, my mother smoked cigarettes, and I don't want to say they didn't know about secondhand smoke, but people smoked in restaurants, people smoked around babies. My mom was in the kitchen. She was smoking a cigarette, and she went to put something on the stove, looked at me. I was on the little bassinet on top of the kitchen table, and the little bounty, whatever the baby thing is called, I don't remember. And I was fine. She turned to stir something on the stove, and by the time she turned back, she said right about here on top of my lip was blue, like I wasn't breathing. So initially, she shakes me, does all that. I'm not responsive. She calls 911. At this point, I'm about 3 weeks old, and 911 comes, the ambulance comes rather, rushes me to Nyack Hospital, which is a local hospital here in Rockland County, New York. And they fly me in a helicopter from Nyack Hospital to Columbian Presbyterian Hospital, which is a major hospital in New York City, because apparently there was a tumor the size of a grapefruit that I was born with, that there would have been no way to know. There was no prenatal care. As a matter of fact, my mother drank alcohol with the pregnancy. She smoked cigarettes throughout the pregnancy. There was no prenatal care. There was no vitamins. There was none of that. So this was something that I was born with that wasn't detected at birth. And when I was born, I was literally small. I was about 5 pounds, 6 ounces, maybe 19 inches long. So a pretty small baby. But when you think of a tumor the size of a grapefruit being inside of a 5-pound baby, you know that I probably really wasn't that much of a large baby. But by the time, my mom and everybody got to the hospital, the doctors did tell my mother that unfortunately, this child will not be a normal child. She will probably have issues with being able to be involved in sports or being active or dancing or whatever, because her lung will be affected majorly through that, and don't really look for her to be normal because of all the things that had happened with her in utero. So, of course, when they went to do the surgery and everything, my mom said that, she prayed and said, God, look, you hid this child from me. You kept her from me. There's no way that you would give me a child in order to take her. And nonetheless, the surgery went successful. I'm here. I'm 37 years old. I was a dancer most of my life, in different dance groups, a cheerleader. At one point, I was very physically active with exercising. I am not as active as I should be right now. But technically, if you look at an x-ray of me right now, it looks like I have these big pockets of holes or scars in my left lung. And technically, I have the breathing of a person with one lung because of the surgery. But nonetheless, I am here. I am literally what you would call a miracle baby. But that is my story, how I entered the earth as a surprise to my family, to my dad, my mom, my siblings, and to even the police officer who delivered me, and to the doctor who was a fresh young doctor who was fascinated with my case at Columbian Presbyterian Hospital, who was my pediatrician my whole life and is now my children's pediatrician. So I just decided to come on and share with you guys my miraculous birth story. I'm literally a miracle baby, and when you see me, you literally see a miraculous story, a miraculous testimony. And that's kind of one of the parts of my journey that I'm talking about for the first time publicly, about me and being a miracle baby and my mom being pregnant and didn't know it. That's my story, guys. If you are watching on YouTube, please make sure that you subscribe to my channel and make sure that you like and turn that notification on, so that way when I do videos, you will get the alerts to stay in touch. And if you're watching on IGTV, make sure that you follow me on Instagram as well, so whenever I upload any of the videos on my IGTV, you will be able to tune in.